Hello everyone and welcome to this Mortal Empire showdown between the Empire, led by Boris Todbringer, and the forces of the Skaven, who are going to be led by Lord Skrolk, the Plague Rat. So let's jump right into this game, guys, and have a bit of fun. So in the front line, I do have a combination of high DPS and breakable units to kind of cut through some of the fodder, including the Sigmar Sons, the Tattersouls here in the middle, and then on the top I have a group of regular Flagellants. In the center, I have my more elite troops, so these are the Greatswords, and the Greatswords are definitely going to be very good against the Storm Vermin, because Storm Vermin, though they do have good armor-piercing values, are more of a halberd type unit, so you can see their melee attack is very low. Right now, their stats across the board are 22, 38, and then 27 weapon strength with a bonus versus large, and if they're squaring off against Greatswords who have, well, 32 and 35 isn't accurate because they do have chevrons, but I think their base stats are like 31, 31, and 32, but these guys also have a true bonus versus infantry, so they're definitely going to do very good in the matchup versus Storm Vermin, and if they have to fight like Clan Rats and Skaven Slaves and things like that, they're going to be too heavily armored for those filthy rats to handle. So that's pretty much it in my front line. On the flanks, I do have two groups of the Free Company Militia, and I feel like these guys are really a hidden gem in this matchup. They have good enough stats to kind of fight the basic Skaven infantry. You can see they do have 28 melee attack, 25 melee defense, and 28 weapon strength. So against, like, even against Plague Monks, they probably could hold their own in melee for some time, though they would lose eventually. But against the Skaven Slave Spears and some of these Clan Rats in the middle, they'll definitely be fine. And it also gives you some really good utility. So if the Skaven player decides to bring like Rat Ogres or Hell Pit Abomination or any number of like, big units, these guys can also shoot them with their pistols and give you some really good support. So in the back, I do have the Silver Bullets to give me some, overwatch on some of these more monstrous units. So even if they have like a Doom Wheel or, any large targets, Rat Ogres, Doom Wheels, Hell Pit Abominations, these guys are going to be able to kind of you pepper them down really, really aggressively. And did they get a range buff? I don't remember the range being 150, but if they did, that's really nice. On top of that, I do have the Sterling Servant Free Company up in the top, and these guys are really good in this matchup as well, for the same reason that these guys, or the regular Free Company, are good, but these guys are even better, being the Regiment of Renown. They do have 38 melee attack, 35 melee defense, and 28 weapon strength. So let's say Lord Skrolk, for example, is going to be summoning rats in the back line, which is going to be, probably one of the better strategies against the Empire. These guys are going to be able to beat the brakes off of those Clan Rats that come back and then continue to fire. So I definitely like them quite a bit. In the back, I got Boris Todbringer, and the Skaven are one of those factions that are excellent at Lord sniping. They have so many tools. Libra Bubonicus, the Warp Lightning Cannon, so having self-healing on your Lord is really nice, especially if you don't bring Lore of Life. So he's going to be joined by the Royal Altar of Griffites, who are pretty good as well. They can deal with a lot of the large threats, but the really nice thing about them is that they cause terror. And the Skaven are one of those factions that are very, very, very vulnerable to leadership issues, so having that terror is going to be pretty good. So for my opponent's army, he's got some Death Runners. Oh, look at him getting all fancy. He's got stock over here. So I actually didn't see these guys at all, and it looks like he's going to be coming and pressuring my flank. He's got a bunch of Skaven Slave Spears in the front and some Clan Rats, I think, taking some of the fodder fire. In the back, he's got Plague Monks on both of his flanks. And this is really the core of his army. He does have two groups of Storm Vermin back here, I think. No, actually just one group of Storm Vermin. And then he does have the Hell Pit Abomination. So this thing is definitely going to be scary, but I do have ample gunfire to help deal with it. He does also have Lord Skrolk with Libra Bubonicus and both of the summon abilities, a group of Rat Ogres, and also two Assassins. So that's going to be really brutal. And on top of that, the Assassins do also have the Rivalhide Talisman, which gives negative 44 melee attack to all nearby troops. So guys, without further ado, let's get this heresy on the road here. So in the front line, you can see these Skaven Slaves are going to be charging in. My Free Company are just teeing off these Clan Rats. They should be able to cut through them pretty quickly, so I think I missed the charge right there, but it looks like I did get it with these other troops. So I do drop a net of M-Talk right there, and you can see all of my guns on the high ground just teeing off on the Rat Ogres, doing an excellent job, against the Hell Pit Abomination. I really need to take this down. It's a very, very powerful unit, and I do not want it tearing into my Greatswords. In the back, you can see I'm kind of just parking my Royal Altar of Griffites as well as Boris Todbringer, just trying to mirror his movements. And I also tried to get a banishment on those Storm Vermin, and it did some okay damage. So the Greatswords here are going to be charging in, and the Rat Ogres are definitely pretty much a hard counter against Greatswords. I mean, great weapon infantry in general don't do very good against large targets, but guys, fear not, the Empire endures. You can see the Royal Altar of Griffites charging in the back. They're just going to start massacring these rats in the front line. And it looks like there is indeed a rat summon coming, so the Clan Rats have gotten into the back line, and also the Death Runners have now sprung their trap. So my Free Company Militia just noticed this, unfortunately, so I'm going to turn and run right here, and then the Empire Knights are going to come in and just get a massive charge on these guys, just coming downhill, knocking these Death Runners away. But Death Runners are really good against armor. They have, the Weeping Blades and armor piercing, so they will beat Empire Knights in sustained combat. But basically, I'm just trying to free up my Free Company over here. So you can see that the Hell Pit Abomination is pretty much already offline. So Boris Todbringer and these Demogryph Knights are going to be chasing this guy down. You can see, oh man, it's so good to hear powder like weapons again. Like, we were so neglected of that in Total War Warhammer 2 so far, but man, it's pretty awesome. So the Hell Pit Abomination is kind of scurrying, although it did get that healing proc, like Too Terrible to Die. The one that, like, when it gets below 10%, it has a chance to heal. So it got a huge healing buff, but it's still broken, so my Royal Altar of Griffites are going to chase it down. And you can see that Boris Todbringer is fending off these Clan Rats right here. So in the infantry fight, it's actually going really well for the Empire. The Greatswords and the Flagellants have been destroying. You can see they push back a lot of these Skavens. Granted, they are pretty much fodder units, but I think most of his elite Skaven are still fighting. Over here we do have the Sigmar Sons, and who better to fend off the Vermintide than Sigmar Sons? But they are doing pretty well. 46 kills. They've been fighting against Plague Monks and Clan Rat Spears, you know, both of which aren't exactly fodder infantry. Although I guess you can make the case that the Clan Rat Spears are fodder infantry. But they're doing very well. Over here you can see my Free Company Militia. They were able to skirmish and do really well against these Skaven Slave Spears, but they did eventually get pushed back by those Death Runners. So the fight's going very well in kind of the center core, and you can see the Skaven have kind of pushed through with a big blob, and my infantry on the bottom have kind of won this frontline engagement, but now they're going to have to chase this big Skaven blob, which is just kind of hunting my guns in the back. But I do have a bunch of rallying missile units. You can see the Free Company here are rallying. I do have my Royal Altar of Griffites who are chasing down the Tailpit Abomination, but I really needed these guys in the main fight. I was like, okay, I need to pull them back. I can't afford to just waste, like, 20 minutes chasing this thing. It's going to rally anyways, and maybe I could just turn my guns on it over here. But you can see my Flagellants just all shirtless and wild, just chasing down these rats. But I do get a nice net of Amnitok right here, which is going to lock these guys down, and the Flagellants are going to be able to kind of catch them from there. And also the Empire Knights are going to be riding down some of these guys, going on a little bit of a heresy hunt. So yeah, the Net of Amnitok, definitely a good tool. The Skaven were pretty bunched up right there, but you can see they're starting to get really tattered. These Death Runners are getting relatively low. But unfortunately over here, some of his assassins are attacking my Empire Knights, and I wanted to be, getting these Empire Knights on some of the squishier troops, not the heroic units. And man, he's actually got a pretty scary little squad here. He's got the Death Runners with the Weeping Blades. He's got some Plague Monks, but I do have a bit of a high ground advantage. I have the high ground, Anakin. The Sterling's Revenge right here, just kind of teeing off down the hill. I also do have my Silver Bullets here shooting into this blob of Skaven. I don't know if they're obstructed right now or if they're just kind of waiting, but I'm pretty sure I had a fire order going off in here. But my infantry have caught a lot of the Skaven troops. You can see the Greatswords and other troops here are just going to be cutting through these Skaven. And oh man, it's so good also having the Blood and Gore pack back. It's so much better. But yeah, you can see the Flagellants are just beating these Skaven over the head, and the Greatswords with their 90 armor are too much for a lot of these Skaven to handle. I mean, they don't have the best armor piercing without those Stormvermin. We're pretty much pushed off the battlefield. Also, the Rat Ogres are pretty beat up. You can see they only have 3 models, and I do have a nice little concave of fire. The Silver Bullets are being pushed off right now by a bunch of Clan Rats that were summoned by Lord Skrulk. And it looks like, oh, I thought he actually got another group right away. I was like, how did he do that? But guys, fear not. The Royal Altar of Griffites are coming down the hill. Bit of an epic charge and going to come after Lord Skrulk, I think. And, anytime you can get the Royal Altar of Griffites into a blob, that's a good thing because they're going to terror out all of these Skaven. So they're coming in right here. You can see the frame rates are dropping because of all the effects. And you just see that one lone Skaven go flying off the map. That was just some brutality right there. So yeah, the Empire forces are kind of collapsing right here. You can see that Boris Todbringer is now going to be going after Lord Skrulk, who is not a strong combatant. I mean, he is strong by caster standards. He has 62 melee attack, but what I meant by strong is he doesn't have much armor. What's his name? Boris Todbringer should be able to do a pretty good job there. So if we take an overarching look at things, you can see a lot of my powder units are rallying. My Free Company here are kind of shooting at some of these rats. I do have a group of the Sterling's Revenge shooting down here. And he does actually have these Skaven Slave Spears, who did come out of the dead Hellpit Abomination in the back, so my guns were able to kind of take that down before it was able to rally here. So you can see my Light Wizard also doing his duty and just chasing down these Clan Rats who are kind of dissipating here. And a lot of the Skaven army that you guys see right now is summoned. So these Plague Monks are summoned, these guys are summoned, this group of 66 Clan Rats as well. So once those guys really start to kind of dissipate and the summons start to wear off, I'm really going to kind of pull ahead in the balance of power, as you guys can see. So in the main fight, the Royal Altar of Griffites and the Greatswords are kind of standing firm for Sigmar. The Lord Skrulk, the Plague Rat, is doing a pretty good job in the pocket, but man, these are some very elite troops kind of wailing on him here. But it's not over yet. You can see there's a bunch of Skaven kind of rallying in the back, and he does have a 31 Stormvermin. He has some Plague Monk coming back here. He does also have an Assassin who's at about 60%. My troops aren't in the best shape, although I do have a group of 77 Greatswords. So these guys are just standing strong, just putting up a great fight, and I can't wait to look at all the kills after that. 120 on those guys. So my guns on the far side are just making sure that some of the rats aren't coming back. So there was a bunch of Skaven, Death Runners, and Plague Monks and different things like that trying to get back in the battle. So every time they were, I was just getting all of my powder units and just turning them around and kind of blasting them to make sure they can't get back and kind of turn the tide of this infantry engagement. So if you see here, Lord Skrulk has been defeated by the Light Wizard. It looks like he's being chased off. And I do also have Boris Todbringer in the main fight, who is a very strong combatant in his own right. 60 melee attack, 50 melee defense, and 430 weapon strength. So man, it's so great seeing Flagellants fight Skaven. That was something like when we had the faction unlocker in Total War Warhammer 2, before Mortal Empires, like, we got to play the matchup a little bit, but not having Flagellants it felt like something was really missing, but having them back in action, just kind of smashing on the Skaven is so cool. So you can see the Assassin is kind of hunting here, but it looks like that's going to be all she wrote. Lord Skrulk here is, trying his best to fight this this last Sigmar Son. The last of Sigmar Sons is still here, guys, and it looks like Boris Todbringer and his Light Wizard buddy are able to trample down Lord Skrulk. So yeah, it was definitely a good game. Very well played to Pharaoh of War. So I do think the Free Company Militia gave me some good utility. They fought in the front line, they did pretty well, they were able to fend off a lot of the fodder units, and once they did eventually rout to Plague Monks, they were able to rally and come back and really start shooting at some of these units. And you guys saw the bounce power was pretty even in that center fight for quite some time, but once a lot of my powder units started to rally, like that gave me a really nice kind of a punch back at his forces. And I was able to just use these Free Company, you know, the silver bullets over here to just absolutely massacre these rat ogres. And on top of that, the Royal Altdorf Griffites were able to get in there because he did charge in with the Hell Pit Abomination and the rat ogres in the center pocket in the middle. And I was able to kind of grab those Royal Altdorf Griffites and, you know, support those greatswords and really kind of push back that Skaven horde, or the Vermintide, I guess that's probably the appropriate way to say it. But the infantry did really well. I mean, greatswords, like you wouldn't think they would be good because you think Skaven, right? You think light armor and greatswords are an armor-piercing unit, but they're really durable in the Skaven matchup. Like the Skaven don't have the best like AP infantry. Storm Vermin are okay, but they're more of like a halberd anti-large unit, so they're going to lose really hard to greatswords. So then what the Skaven player is probably going to have to do is bring rat ogres and things like that. Or perhaps like Sensor Bears. Sensor Bears might be pretty good in this matchup as well. But again, Sensor Bears are very squishy and can go down very quick to gunfire, so definitely a little bit more testing required. But yeah, I like the build quite a bit. That's a Talk, we're definitely a lifesaver. And yeah. So for Pharaoh of War's build, I like Lord Skrolk. I love the Assassins with the Rival Head Talisman. I definitely liked his army. It's pretty well rounded. The one thing I would maybe not consider bringing would be the Hell Pit Abomination. That, like, it can protect Lord Skrolk. I kind of see the direction of that, but I feel like the 2 Assassins plus Rat Ogres can do that job. And the Hell Pit Abomination just got gunned down so quickly. And I feel like most Empire players are going to be using guns anyway, so it's a bit of a risky pick. And then, you know, with the Royal Altdorf Griffites and Demogryph Knights, it's also very vulnerable to those guys. So, but anyways, very well played to Pharaoh of War. And guys, go check out his YouTube channel. Pharaoh of War is a competitive multiplayer guy as well, and he's got a bunch of good videos. I'll do my best to remember to put a link in the comment section below. So guys, give him a look. So thanks again for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing the Vermintide versus the Flagellant Hordes. And guys, I got a lot more content coming soon.